Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Yo, what's happening, Rush Nation? Welcome back to the 5 Yard Fantasy Show. Don't know where that came from. That came out of nowhere. It's week one, baby. It's Thursday night, the hottest day this year in the UK, which is currently why I'm in the hallway in my house, because it's the coldest area. So if the audio is terrible, it's because A, I'm in the hallway, B, I'm on my phone, and C, it's hot. So I'm blaming it on that. As usual, I'm joined by the big man, Murf. How are you, my friend? How's your week been?
Busy. It's been non-stop over here at Murf Towers. Let me tell you that for free. It's literally been wild. Loads of stuff in the day job, the kiddo's first day of school. I know you're going through that as well. So, you know, he's been to school 3 days now. So, yeah, it's just wild. I've got a thing in my eye or on my eye. So my eyelid is swollen. So I went to the doctors. It's not an infection. It's just some irritation thing. So I was like, great, thanks. Needed that, like a hole in the head after this year, but it's fine. It's pretty minor. It's just slightly annoying. And then I've just been busy writing, podcasting, 5th pod of the week, I think. 3 for us now, and a couple of league reviews. Oh, and Patreon casts, 6 pods. So it's been crazy busy. Writing. I might have some news to announce soon about a new article I'll be writing at a new home. So it's not all done yet. I've not signed anything. So
Interesting.
Yeah. So this literally just talks happened today. So it's been a busy one, but I'm excited. It's week 1 of the NFL season. The Buccaneers are going to go back to being crap. So I can go back to, you know, watching fantasy without the excitement of the Buccaneers being good. I've had my 3-year spell. I mean, 2.5. We weren't really that good last year. And go back to finishing 3rd in the division and kicking on, and just it's like the universe has been restored back to normal. It's like COVID kind of threw everything up, including the Buccaneers being good, but now everything's settled down. The Buccaneers go back to being bad again. So, yeah, I'm getting a lot of crap, by the way, from my Buccaneers friends for saying that the Buccaneers are going to be bad.
Well, it's only natural, isn't it? When you hate on your own team through factual correctness, people are still going to hate on you regardless, because a lot of people are homers, right? And it's ride or die without seeing rose-tinted glasses, I think they call it, or creamsicle tinted in the case of the Buccaneers, right?
Yeah, look, I am all for being optimistic. I'm a pretty optimistic guy at times, but yeah, I struggle to be optimistic about the Buccaneers. I did Buccaneers pod with Andy Davis, who's one of our Dynasty guys, and he has his own podcast. And I had us to go 6-10, which I think was the second lowest record of all the teams, all the 32 fan reviews that he did. So, yeah, give that a listen, because you'll hear my rationale behind it. I mean, the difference is, right, with the Buccaneers this year, I'm not going to turn this into a Buccaneers pod, is they went all in to win 2 Super Bowls, right? They won 1, went all in to go back-to-back to win another Super Bowl. And unlike the Saints, where they kick the cap down the road, like literally down the road, and forever just run up recurring interest to the point where they're not going to have any cap one year and won't be able to field any players. The Buccaneers have decided that this year they're going to pay the lot. So it's 73 million and change in dead money. So effectively, the Buccaneers had already planned that this year was going to be a crap year, which is why they went out and got Baker Mayfield, because he's probably the only quarterback that was willing to play for about $3-4 million. They have 6 undrafted rookies on their 53. 6. That's huge. I can't think of a team in history, in recent history at least, where there's been 6 undrafted free agent rookies on a single roster from the same season, where they're all rookies. Like, I can think of rosters which have had 6 undrafted players, but they've been from different years, but never 6 from the same draft class in the same year as they're all rookies, which again tells you that the Buccaneers just don't have money to pay people.
Yeah, that's wild. That is a lot of undrafted free agents.
There is, and some of them are going to be good. Some of them are on offense. but we can get to that in the sleeper section. But yeah, I'm excited. Like, it's so good to be back. 7 months of what can be and optimism and everything. You know, it's exciting for you, Stocks. Broncos, new coach, who I can't stand, but regardless, it's a new coach. You know, should be some enthusiasm there. Decent draft.
I don't know how. The last few years have been decent drafts, and we've had a new coach and in Hackett last year, and then Russ came. I don't know what's different from this year to last year.
You got Sean Payton. You got a proven winner. You got a guy who's won a lot of division titles. Only won Super Bowl.
I was going along the lines of, like, numerically, it's the same situation. We've just improved ourselves head coach wise by having Sean Payton. And the draft was good, but then, you know, our wide receiver room at the moment is absolutely ravaged. The constant Russell Wilson hate from around everybody who isn't a Denver fan now seems to be in. I mean, he doesn't do himself any favors. I'm not going to sit here and defend the way Russ is Rust, but he's still potentially Russell Wilson. We just haven't seen it, and whether Sean Payton can unlock that. The good news is Javonte seems fully back to fitness, which is great for the offense, considering, you know, Albert O got released. He was drafted because of Drew Lock, and they were homies at college, and the Drew Lock experience dived off a cliff pretty quickly, and Albert O followed him out the door. So whether it will be Adam Troutman, who's Sean Payton's guy, or whether it will be Dulcich, Greg Dulcich. He yet to be seen. I'm not sure. It could be a 50 split, that with maybe 2 tight end sets quite a bit. But we've got the running backs that Payton likes. We've got wide receivers. Admittedly, Judy's still banged up. I'm not sure if he's out now for week 1. But there is
questionable. But yeah,
there is some optimism. The only downside to a Denver Broncos optimism is the fact of the division we're in. You know, it just seems to be the ultimate division of. If you play Warhammer and you know about the first chapter of a Space Marines army is the veterans chapter, and that's where all the elite troops go to apply their trade, and that feels exactly like the AFC East. Is just everybody's good seems to go there, and you've got the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Chargers. It's not a bad division, so the optimism is always silenced because of how good the division is. So there is always that little bit of hesitancy where you think, oh God, if we were in a division where, you know, if we were in Carolina's division or Tampa's division this year, we'd have a far better chance of.
Well, I just think if you were the NFC in general, I mean, the NFC's pretty poor. I was sitting there looking at the NFC, right, trying to put 7 teams in the playoffs, and I struggle. Like, I struggle to come up with 7 teams that are good enough to be in the playoffs. So, like, you look at the NFC and you think, okay, you've got Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco, Minnesota. Now I'm struggling. Like, now I'm thinking one of them's got to be the winner of the NFC South, and good luck picking that. I don't know who the favorite is. You guess it would be New Orleans, but I haven't looked at the bookies line. That's a wide open division because it's so bad. You've got a rookie quarterback. I mean, all 4 teams have new quarterbacks this year. That's how wild the division is. Oh, no, sorry. Atlanta don't. They've got Desmond Ridder. I like Desmond Ridder, by the way. I'm a Desmond Ridder believer. I actually think I looked at that draft class last year. He was my favorite quarterback in that class last year over Pickett. I thought Pickett would be fine. I just didn't think he'd be exciting. I think he's a do-a-jobber, kind of 5-year career best, and then kind of is a career backup. And really, the only other one I thought could do anything was Ridder. The rest I kind of washed away and thought they were all good. I never bought the Malik Willis hype. I never saw what other people saw in Malik Willis, and he looks like he's about finished in the NFL now, considering the Titans have drafted Will Levis. So you look at that and you think that division is in play, but it's poor. Teams like Green Bay could sneak in, who people don't really rate, and I think, well, Jordan Love might be good. Like, he might be good. They've kept him around long enough. There's got to be something there to have survived that long and then to trade Aaron Rodgers away. So I put them in there. And then I think you look at Seattle, maybe, because they're just not terrible. And that might be 6 of the 7. And then you're looking at the last spot. But yeah, I'm not excited. Like, if you're in the NFC, I think 9 wins, 10 wins probably gets you into the playoffs quite comfortably. You might have the winner of the NFC South have a losing record again, like they did last year with the Buccaneers. They got it 8 and 9. That's how bad that division was, and it's not entirely improved. I do think probably the winner will have a winning record, but I don't think it's going to be a stellar record. Whereas you look at the AFC, it's completely loaded because you've got the Jets and the Bills and Miami in one division. I mean, that's and the Patriots, who you can't, with that D, you can't really rule them out. They're the Patriots are the 4th best team in their division, and like they're not a terrible team.
No.
They're not great on offense, but they're not terrible. And then you look at your division, like you said, like you probably say that the Raiders or Denver would be at the bottom again. Not a bad team in the NFC. In the NFC, those teams are winning records all day long. They're beating over half the teams in the NFC without doubt. And then you've got the North, and the North has got Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Again, that's a tough division. I call a winner in that one. I think it's Baltimore, but we could talk about our predictions where we think this season's going to go. I think the only division that lets the AFC down is the South. Tennessee, Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Like, you think Jacksonville will win that division quite comfortably, which, when have we ever gone into a season and gone, oh, Jacksonville are going to win a division comfortably? Have we ever said that? Has anyone ever said that sentence ever in the history of the NFL? I don't think so. Jacksonville going to win their division comfortably. You should clip that because that's ridiculous that they are going to walk their division.
Yeah. Just looking at it and you think, they should quite comfortably.
Tennessee are the only ones that are going to rival them. Tennessee are the only team that can take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in that division. Because the Colts and the Texans are fighting for the 1 pick with Arizona, Tampa, maybe a couple other teams. But it's a 2-horse race in that division, and I give Jacksonville the elite advantage over Tennessee. But yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a good season. I'm looking forward to it. But the AFC is loaded, and the NFC is trash. But it does mean that whoever comes out of the NFC is borderline dangerous because they're run through the playoffs, especially whoever gets the 1 seed in the NFC. They're going to get a bye, and they're going to get pretty. The only time I think that the NFC 1 seed gets tested is in the NFC title game. I don't think there are 5 good teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the NFC and who the Niners are.
The Niners and the Eagles.
Yeah,
and then you draw a line, and then there's the Cowboys, the Vikings, and maybe the Seahawks. If we're being generous, I actually think they're probably another tier down. The Seahawks.
Them poor Lions, man.
I think the Lions could make the playoffs.
They're the wild card this year. They were
absolutely the wild card. But you look about how bad they were 2 years ago, and now we're talking about them as a playoff team when they haven't particularly drafted brilliantly. I don't think they've drafted that well, and I just think they've got an exciting coach who just goes for it no matter what. He's like an absolute madman who just goes for it on every play, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, we'll just see what happens. I mean, the best job. I mean, they got Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. That's an absolutely phenomenal pick. So I'm probably being slightly harsh, but
I don't know.
Jack Campbell's not going to start out the gate, so obviously they're not as happy with him as you would expect. I don't think the Jahmyr Gibbs pick is a good pick. We'll see what happens. I'm not a big fan. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. They drafted Jeff Okudah. He's not on the team anymore.
He's now a Falcon, I think.
Yeah, fourth overall he was taken. Like, they've not drafted well.
No.
At least in the high rounds. In the later rounds, they've picked some players up. But wow, I mean, like, that's a franchise that has not is in contention without drafting well. So
yeah. I mean, we talk about the Lions. They are tonight as we record this live. They're tonight's game. They're taking on the Super Bowl champs, the Chiefs. Murph, with or without a Travis Kelce? Because for us in the UK, that is an absolute ball ache of if you have Travis Kelce on your redraft team, it's because you drafted him early in the UK, and you now have to potentially either try and stay awake because he's a true game time decision, or plug in another tight end and come what may.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. They're talking about he's going to work out pre-game to see if he can go. I think we'll probably know before everyone goes to bed, hopefully. But the one thing they have done is they've elevated Matt Bushman from their practice squad. So they've brought up another tight end. So Noah Gray's the tight end that backs up Travis Kelce, and they've brought another one up. That leans to me that he's either not going to go or he's not going to be 100%. Yeah. And for me, if you're the Chiefs, I'm not gambling. Hyperextension. I've done a hyperextension. I'm not an athlete, granted. But you can make that so much worse. A hyperextension could turn into something far more significant. Yes, for fantasy players, it is annoying. It's very annoying. But you would rather miss Travis Kelce week 1 than you'd miss him play, get injured, and miss multiple games, which is what really is on the line here. Yeah. I personally think that if they're smart, they don't play him. Or they limit him but I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't risk it at all. I don't think it's worth the risk. I think they've got enough to beat the Lions without Travis Kelce. I don't think you risk it week 1. If this was you need the playoffs, whatever, and he's kind of 50-50, I half get it, but I don't get it week 1. But we'll see. Andy Reid is known for not playing cautiously regardless. So I wouldn't say I'd be shocked if he lined up this tonight, but I don't think you can play him. I think if you're in the UK, you're not staying up. I think you have to be cautious here and not play him.
Yeah.
Because yes, there might be the occasion he might go for 11, 165 and 2, right? That is in the range of outcomes, and you'll kill me for it. But he could also score you 0.
I have removed him from my lineups.
Yeah,
because I want to play the safe. My only my only concern with the Travis Kelce in or out is in the last pick of my Scott Fishbowl team, I drafted Noah Gray.
Oh well, then there you go.
But I don't know whether to play him or not.
I don't love playing him either, to be honest. I mean, I've got them in my ranks. I've got them 19 and 20. Right, I've got Laporta at 18. So I literally have the 3 tight ends possible in this game at 18, 19, and 20. Which doesn't mean I'm not playing any of them.
Yep.
I'm just not playing any of them. I just think it's Thursday night football. If this was Sunday, it might be slightly different. You might make a calculated gamble. But you've got so much time between now and Sunday to make lineup adjustments that I just think I would play it safe. In any league, I've got Travis Kelce. Unless it's a league where, I tell you what, I have one league where the drop-off is so far from Travis Kelce to who I have as a backup because it's a dynasty league. It's a super deep league that I'm playing Kelce because, to be perfectly honest, the replacement is only going to get about 3 points anyway. So I'll take the risk because it's like, if Kelce does play, he's going to score more than 3 points. And if he doesn't, the 3 points probably, famous last words, they're probably not going to kill me.
Yeah.
So you look at the risk reward. If you're in a league where, you've got available backup options, you've got a Chig out there, you've got a Higbee out there, you've got a decent tight end option, and Everett out there. Everett this week has a decent plus matchup. Like, I think they're the guys I would probably play over someone like Travis Kelce this week, and maybe it's cautious. And at the end of the day, I just think you'll have more to. I think if you got to try and get off to a good start, and having a 0 in your lineup is very hard to win with.
Mm.
But I mean, obviously, the best advice I can give you is stay up till midnight, and you'll know. Or set an alarm for midnight, wake up, see if he's playing. If he's not playing, take out your lineup, go back to bed. That's the best advice I can give you. But if you're not, then I would stay away, because I think that elevation of the practice squad is going to be the difference for me. I know that Clark Hunt has said that I wouldn't bet against him being on the field, but I think that's more a statement of like trying to keep the other team guessing.
Yeah. Well, the Chiefs are currently 4.5-point favorites. So
that's wild. I thought they'd be bigger than that, but there you go.
Yeah, 4.5 points is
I mean, I've just done the matchup pod, right? And I explained the Kelsey situation. And I'm like, well, there's not much in this game from a fantasy perspective I love. In a 1 QB league, you're playing Mahomes. He's my QB1 this week. The running back situation, you haven't got a particularly strong running back this week in here. You got a couple of running back 2s, but you don't have running back 1s in this game. So really, you're relying on the wide receivers here. So if I go through, I've got Gibbs at 21, Pacheco at 22, and Montgomery at 25. RB, that is. So, and this is half point. So I probably in PPR, Gibbs could probably go up 2, maybe 19. But yeah, 21, 22, 25 and half point is where I've got those guys ranked.
Which is
so it is all about the wide receivers in this game and Mahomes, obviously. Because I've got Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver 6, Sky Moore at 35, and Kadarius Toney at 38. Now, if Kelsey doesn't go, both those guys go up about 5 to 7 spots because the targets will go round. I've kind of hedged the bet there, but I think if I get confirmation, then I move those guys up. So they're wide receiver 3 range flex plays, but they could easily jump into the top 25, 30 or so.
Just looking through this week's matchups, there's some real juicy games, isn't there?
Great week 1 to start off with. It's a really good slate of games. Monday Night Football is incredible. What a great first game of the season on Monday Night Football. Like, it's phenomenal. There's a couple of duds, though. Like Washington, Arizona is not a game I'm particularly interested in. I'll watch it at some point, but yeah, not particularly like enthralled at the prospect of that one.
Texans Ravens could be a donut, like when the Ravens came over and absolutely thumped the Jaguars in London. That could be a nothing. I mean, the Jaguars Colts could be a bit of a dud. If the Jaguars defense can stop Anthony Richardson pretty swiftly, then that could be a nothing. But then you've got the opposite. You've got the Niners Steelers. That could be an absolute humdinger. Yeah,
you could do, or that could be a real defensive game as well. And you know, one of the bits of news we should talk about is Nick Bosa is one of the highest paid players in football with his $170 million contract. I mean, huge. I'd like to see the breakdown of the contract, but record-setting number for a defensive lineman, to say the least. I mean, Aaron Donald's probably knocking on someone's door this morning, Les Snead's door, and saying, "Hey, I want some of that money."
Yeah. But can the Rams afford that? Is that the Rams defense is one of the youngest in the league this year by all accounts, except Aaron Donald. And
yeah, I mean, it depends what route the Rams want to go down. It really depends on what route they want to go. As you said, they're getting younger for the most part. I mean, they could do it. I mean, there's a few little contract scenarios going on around the league. They have a lot of dead money this year, $75 million in dead money. I've looked at the dead money I can't believe that they still owe Allen Robinson $21.5 million. I feel like he left there quite a while ago. They owe nearly $20 million on Jalen Ramsey, who they traded out of there. Nearly $19 million on Leonard Floyd. $7.5 million on Bobby Wagner. Like, they owe big money. It's mad how much money they owe. Like, that is wild. They don't have much cap space, actually. They only have $2.5 million. So it's not a huge amount. So,
look, you're talking about the Broncos struggles with how hard their division is. Look, actually, if the Lions can beat the Chiefs tonight, the Broncos are playing the Raiders. So there's 3 of the 4 teams, and then you've got the Chargers at the Dolphins, which is no walker. Dolphins at Chargers, which is no easy game. The Finns could easily win that one in LA. And then if the Broncos can get a win against the Raiders, they could be the only team with a winning weekend if the Lions get the upset tonight. So that would be a great start for Denver if that was the case.
Yeah, it would be. I can't see it personally, but it'd be interesting to see what happens. My favorite thing going on at the moment is I've seen loads of Twitter things today, or X things, or whatever we're calling Elon Musk's playground now, where they've seen players get contract restructures, right? A lot of players yesterday got contract restructures, and their teams were like, "Oh, we're going to go and get Mike Evans, or we're going to go and get, a player or free agency like a Kareem Hunt, or they're going to go and get someone through trade," and everyone's really super duper excited. And I'm going to pour cold water on all of it now and explain why there were so many restructures yesterday. And so many restructures yesterday because yesterday was the end of the top 51 player cap. So what happened is up until yesterday, only the top 51 players counted against your cap.
Right.
And now every player on your roster counts against your cap, including your practice squad. So teams had to restructure contracts like the Buccaneers, like the Rams, like the Bills, maybe. I don't know. There's a few teams yesterday that had players who restructured contracts because they needed to create the cap space. It wasn't like I saw a lot of Buccaneers fans really excited. It's like, we're going to go and get Mike Evans' new contract sorted. I'm like, hold the phone. That's not exactly what's happening here. It's they had to restructure Shaquille Barrett's contract by $10 million because they were actually going to be $5 million and change over the cap. So now they're under, to the point where now the Bills somehow are only 35 grand under the cap. Like, I've never seen a team that close to the cap. It's ridiculous. 35 grand. Like,
that's almost
it's literally not. You can't sign a player for 35 grand, even to the practice squad, I don't think. Maybe you can. But wow, I mean, like, it's tight as anything. Lots of teams are within like 5 million or less of the cap. Your Broncos are the second poorest team on cap. They've only got $1.3 million in cap. And then you've got the Browns at the top of the tree by a country mile, 35.3 million in cap they've got spare.
That's a lot.
And that's why, folks, I've been talking about Jerome Ford, because everyone's like, Kareem Hunt, cap casualty. Yes, he was. He was going to earn a lot of money this year. It was about $6-7 million. The Browns didn't want to pay that, so they let him go because they could. But also, they had the money to pay Kareem Hunt. Look, they've got $35 million in the bank. They'll roll that over next year, or a large chunk of it anyway. Jerome Ford is actually quite good. So if you're in a league where Jerome Ford is not owned, I would be tonight adding him to your roster. Get rid of your backup. If you drafted a premium quarterback, so I'm talking Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Fields, Jackson, or Herbert, get rid of your backup QB. You don't need them on your bench. Just get rid of them. Pick up Jerome Ford. Thank you very much. You're welcome. That is a PSA right there.
Safety from.
Why do you need a backup quarterback? Like, Justin Fields' bye is in week 13. Are you going to hold your backup quarterback for 12 weeks? I don't think you are. You're going to cut your backup quarterback like you do every year. You're going to cut your backup quarterback around week 4 to week 6 when you realize you need to start using your bye week benches. And then all of a sudden you've missed the opportunity to get someone like Jerome Ford for free, or a Sean Tucker for free, or a Gus Edwards for free, or whoever it is that you're looking to target. Stack your bench with running backs. Get these guys on your benches right now. They should not be unowned. Cut. And the same goes for tight ends. If you took, Travis Kelce in the first round, he might not play tonight. You have to start your backup. Fine. If you took Mark Andrews, cut the backup tight end. Just cut the backup tight end. You don't need him. And people are saying, oh, well, Travis Kelce's injured. You need a backup tight end. Yes, but the backup tight end is going to be the same as the backup tight end that is on the waiver wire.
Yeah. That backup tight end you're going to use will be on the waiver.
Of course. And draft capital from the 10th round. I mean, draft capital's dead from the moment you draft anyway. But especially from the 10th round onwards, it doesn't matter. Like, you cut him in without ever playing him. Like, oh, I drafted him. I can't cut him. Of course you can. Of course you can cut him. Like, it's your team. Like, it doesn't matter. But also, it really doesn't matter. Stack your bench with running backs. Like, that is what you need to do now. Because we've seen it year after year after year. Week 1, week 2, week 3. Running backs go down. Running backs go down. Get those handcuffs on there. Get those premium guys. But someone like Jerome Ford isn't just a handcuff. He is a flex-worthy play most weeks.
All right. Well, you mentioned sleepers earlier, Murph, and somebody I drafted my last draft finished on Monday. My last redraft draft, and I drafted Deion Jackson in the last round of my draft because of the Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
And Zach Moss is still on the waivers in that league. And you think, oh yes, they've said they're going to go with the hot hand, but I think it's going to be on Deion Jackson. And to draft him in the last round, or if he's in your waivers, Taylor isn't playing for 4 weeks. Moss is injured. I don't know whether he's back or he had a shoulder injury, I think. Deion Jackson is probably going to get most of the work, I think, in the Indianapolis game this week. And even if it's for 1 week, we've seen what he can do in that system. Anthony Richardson's going to need his running back probably at some point. And I think, Deion Jackson is a great play this week if you're stuck for a running back that you may not need in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would say yes for this week, but I don't know if he's startable this week. I actually think that Zach Moss is the play going forward.
Oh, I agree.
But not this week. Not this week. I don't think he plays this week. So I think Deion Jackson's a good play this week. But, well, I'd say a good play. I don't think he's a good play this week. I don't think he's a bad play, but I don't think he's a good play. I'm not racing to start Deion Jackson unless I'm in a league where I've got some injuries and I'm kind of struggling. Like, I've got Deion Jackson. I went through this on the matchups pod and I've completely forgotten him. I've got him like around about running back 39.
Ouch.
Well, these are the players I have ranked over him, and tell me who you would realistically rank over him. Zach Charbonnet's at 38. You taking Charbonnet? Are you taking Jackson over Charbonnet?
No.
Right. Damian Harris at 37.
Yes, I am going to.
All right, fine. AJ Dillon at 36. They have AJ Dillon at 36.
No, I'm taking Jackson over Dillon.
Well, that's mad. No chance. Right. Mattison's at 35, and he's a starter.
Yeah. I'm playing Mattison.
I'm very low on Mattison. Right. Khalil Herbert. I'll keep going. Antonio Gibson. I've got Javonte at 32. Raheem Mostert at 31. James Cook 30.
I'll play him over Mostert.
Right. Well, I mean, Mostert's the actual starter, and he should get some work. But okay, I can see the point. There's not many that you would start, and that's what I mean. And we're still talking running back 30. You probably shouldn't be starting running back 30. With 31's from his start. James Cook, I think, is the borderline where he's the last player I would sit there and comfortably start. I do have Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift, and there could be an argument that I might move them down. I haven't quite settled on where they are, but like Breece Hall, David Montgomery, Samaje Perine, Brian Robinson, Pacheco, Gibbs, Pierce, Connor, Sanders, Jamal Williams, Kenneth Walker. I'm starting all those guys. Like I just don't see a room. Hey, Sven's here. Long time since we chatted. How you doing, pal? I just can't. I can't find a path for Deion Jackson this week to start because the Colts are going to be bad. They're going to be really, 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 really bad. And Jacksonville are good. They've got a good D. They've got a good offense. Like this really could be like one of those 40-7 blow-ups first week of the season games. Like it wouldn't shock me. Like I think the only Colt I could start this week with any confidence is Michael Pittman. I think he's the only Colt I could start and feel okay about it.
And you're basing that on a 50% completion rate from Anthony Richardson as well.
Yeah, but he's going to get like 98 targets because who else is getting the ball? Who's getting the ball in Indianapolis? Alec Pierce, who's tiny.
How dare you, my bear?
I mean, he's tiny, but whatever.
Okay.
But his competition for targets is virtually nil. Like he's not Pittman. They got no tight end. Like it's Mo Alley Cox is good or Granson who's going to be the tight end. Both of them have not done anything in the history of the NFL really. And then you've got no running back with any receiving pedigree. Jackson's okay, but he's not great. Zach Moss is the receiving back, and he's crocked. So not going to be passing too many to the receiver to the running backs. You got no tight end. Like realistically, Michael Pittman could have a 35-40% target share this weekend. Really, and like that's silly numbers, but he realistically could because there is no one else on that team that can catch a football. And yes, admittedly, Anthony Richardson can't accurately throw a football, but if he gets 20 targets and it's a 50% completion rate, that's still 10 catches. Yes, he's not going to get 20 targets. I get it. Sven's saying 14, so maybe 5 catchable balls. I think you could probably see Pittman, 14, 15 targets maybe. And I think he can catch, if he catches 8 of those, 8 PPR points, 10 yards a catch, 80, that's 16 points. That's the only person I can start in the Colts this week. I can't start anyone unless Richardson in a super flex. That's the only other. But yeah.
So who else have you got down as some sleepers that you fancy this week?
Well, sleepers for this week is a little bit trickier. The player the biggest sleeper, so like the biggest sleeper I have got this week. So I actually had to write this for Fantasy Pros. They do these collective articles and they ask a selection of analysts or writers of theirs, who is the biggest flop inside the top 40, and then who's the biggest sleeper in outside the top 100. Mm-hmm. So my biggest flop inside the top 40 flex players was Khalil Herbert. Just fade him at all costs. I've talked about it many times, so I'm not going to go into it here. But the biggest sleeper I had, and you'll like the stocks, is Marvin Mims Jr. because he's currently ranked as the 102nd ranked flex player, which I think is mad. Like let's be honest, Judy's not going to go. Like it's very unlikely Judy's going to go this week. So he's realistically going to be the wide receiver 2 in that offense. He was drafted by Peyton and Co. So there's a lot of trust there. I just think that it's a decent matchup for him. He's going to get some decent looks. I'm not predicting him to be a wide receiver 1 or even a wide receiver 2, but I think he's a flex play. I think you could start him in the flex and be quite happy with the return you get on Marvin Mims Jr. this week.
I love Marvin Mims this week.
I think he's a great player. I genuinely have got a lot of Marvin Mims, and I think I look at the matchup, I think about who he's going to go against, and I sit there and think, I definitely think against the Raiders he can get some joy. I do think that they're not the best at the back. I'm all for fight at the flex 102. Like that's wild to me that he's down that low. Yeah. Wild that he's the 102nd best player in that's taken out quarterbacks, DSTs, and kickers. Like, that's wild. I can't see a path where he's going to finish outside the top 60.
Yeah, it could be. This could be the Marvin Mims game. No worries. This could be the Marvin Mims game of the season. It could be that game where, because Judy's out, Sutton is either not the guy that Peyton wants him to be or Sutton has proven to be. And all of a sudden, Mims gets 8 for 65 and a score, and everyone wants their Marvin Mims. And if Cortland Sutton remains Cortland Sutton, it could easily be Jerry, Mims, Sutton in that order in the 1, 2, 3 wide receivers. And Mims he was unbelievable at Oklahoma. Peyton went up to get him. And
I could have more. I'm all for it. I think his price is too low. He'll be free in a lot of leagues right now. And as I said, if you're thinking about leagues where you've got a bench and you're sitting there with a backup quarterback and you've got an elite quarterback and you've got a backup tight end and you've got an elite tight end, there's 2 spots that you can go and fill and get a Jerome Ford and a Marvin Mims Jr. Like, I think for me, you got to... Bench management is something that podcasts don't talk about enough. And you've got to have guys who are going to not just contribute, but have high ceiling games, right? There's no point. Like, I like Zay Jones. I have a lot of Zay Jones in very, very deep leagues where you start a lot of players, especially flex players, because the value of someone getting 10 points is at that point ultra value. If you're Like I'm in a league where there's it's start 5 wide receivers and then there's 2 flex. So like having a player like Zay Jones in a league like that is valuable because having your flex get 10 points is useful because it's so deep. Or your wide receiver 5 getting 10 points is useful because at that point you're talking about the wide receiver 60.
Yeah.
Like there's 60 wide receivers that are starting every week as a minimum. So if you can get a Zay Jones who's going to finish inside the top 60 every week, there's value to that. If you're in a league that's 2 wide receivers and then 1 flex, having Zay Jones on your roster is completely pointless because there is no point getting a guy who's going to score 9 or 10 points because you're not going to win. Like you need to get a guy who, yes, could flatline and score 3 or could score 23. And that is the kind of thing that Marvin Mims will do. Marvin Mims has got a couple of 20-point weeks in him this season. I totally believe that. Because they're going to be, as you say, you've already said this, they're in a tough division. They're going to be behind a fair amount. They're going to have to throw this football. They're going to have to throw this football. Like, they can't just run it all the time. Yes, they'll have games where they will run the ball a lot. They'll control the ball. They'll control the pace. And Marvin Mims won't get a lot. And those are the games that you don't start Marvin Mims. But when you start him against, like, the Kansas City Chiefs, he could potentially get, like, 10 or 12 targets, and he could eat on that.
Yep.
So I'm all for having a player like that because there's a high ceiling there. Yes, there's a low floor. There's a very low floor. And that's why his ADP is so bad. But there is a high ceiling there. And those are the sorts of players, if you get them right on the right weeks, they can win you matchups. Because your flex scoring 23, there aren't going to be many flex players that are going to do that. So, drafting a Marvin Mims, drafting a Deion Jackson, sorry, but Deion Jackson's not going to put up a 20-point week this season. Jonathan Taylor will, but Deion Jackson won't. Zach Moss probably won't.
No.
But I don't mind having those players on your bench, but you're going to need a second injury. You're going to need an injury to someone in that committee. And probably for Jackson, it will need to be Moss. For Moss, it will need to be Jackson. Those two will cannibalize each other. I think the only one winner out of there is Moss. Moss is probably the only one I can see winning out of the two because he's got the catching ability and the running ability. Like he's got everything and he's proven in this league. Deion Jackson really hasn't kind of proven it too much in this league. But that's why I like the strategy of deep stacking running backs and wide receivers, especially, like for me, Jerome Ford, if Nick Chubb goes down, he's going to have elite usage. He's going to have, because Pierre Strong's not going to take that much from him. He's just not. Pierre Strong's not that good. You're looking at, I'm trying to think of other players that are Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker is out there. Sean Tucker realistically could challenge Rachaad White. If Rachaad White doesn't get off to a good start, Sean Tucker is going to get the ball.
Sean Tucker is excellent.
Sean Tucker is excellent. How he went undrafted, I don't understand. I don't understand the NFL that Sean Tucker ended up undrafted because he's if you own Chase Edmonds, get him off your roster. If you own Chase Edmonds is going to be the next LaShawn McCoy at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's going to do literally nothing. He's going to earn a paycheck doing yeah. I mean, LaShawn McCoy won a Super Bowl with Tampa doing literally nothing. I want to know how many but that's Chase Edmonds this year.
Chase Edmonds last year as well at the Broncos. I've got one that I quite like in deep leagues. If Cooper Kupp remains injured for a long time, and that's my BYU Cougar Puka Nakua. But just there isn't anyone else. It's Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, and
Van Jefferson's good at football. Newsflash. Van Jefferson's good at football.
Chomp, enough.
I don't like many Gators players recently, but he is one I do love.
No, he's quite good. I'll give you that. But I just think Puka Nakua's, he's got some value in a deep league because there is no one else.
He is tiny, though. He's not as tiny as Tutu Atwell, but he is tiny.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's your benchmark.
They like tiny receivers in LA. I don't understand why. You got Tutu Atwell, and you're like, okay, you've already got the tiniest wide receiver that's ever going to play in the NFL, and now you got Nakua, and you think, well, okay, he's slightly bigger than Atwell.
Atwell could fit in my pocket. That's
I mean, I worked out that he was like, was it like 168 Big Macs or quarter pounders? He's 168 quarter pounders. That's what I worked out he is. Like, it's hilarious. But yeah, it's wild. By the way, I looked it up. LaShawn McCoy, Super Bowl winning year, right? And keep in mind, he won the Super Bowl the year before with Kansas City. So he won the Super Bowl the year before with Kansas City, running the ball 101 times. And then he got 28 receptions. So he touched the ball 129 times. In Tampa, he ran the ball 10 times.
Nice.
For 31 yards. in which 23 of those were before contact. So he basically fell over and got 8 yards after contact, which is terrible. How do you manage 0.8 yards after contact per attempt? Is terrible. He then caught the ball 15 times. He touched the ball 25 times in that Super Bowl winning year and got a ring. Like, that's 25 times more than me.
Or me.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. But yeah, I like Nakua. I think he's in a really deep, like, you're gonna have to go super deep league.
I did preface it with deep.
Yeah. I think I look at leagues and I think about, in a charity league, Nakua's one I would definitely be adding. But I think at this point in the season, I'm looking at running backs and think they're the ones I want to add, because you've always got an injury, like someone like Ty Chandler, who I don't love, but if Mattison goes down, Mattison's had injuries in the past, you can have a go on him and he'll probably do quite well. Those are the sorts of players I want to be adding to benches, because if you do get an injury week one, Mattison's got a tough matchup week one against the Bucs. Like, it wouldn't shock me if he walked off the field injured. That's a horrible thing to say, but it wouldn't shock me. So I just think I'd rather take a shot on these sort of running backs, and then with these high ceiling wide receivers like a Marvin Mims. I think Marvin Mims is a high ceiling wide receiver. I think he's someone that, it'll be boom and bust, but I see him almost having a similar profile in fantasy to Mike Evans. Someone who will, score 3 touchdowns one week and then not do anything for 3 more weeks. Jonathan Mingo, I like, because I think that situation in Carolina is completely ambiguous, that you think there is an opportunity there for someone to emerge, not even as the 2, as the 1. I mean, you got Thielen, but Thielen is old and prone to injury. You got Chark, you've got Mingo, you've got Marshall. Like, it's a pretty ambiguous room there. Do they still have LaVisca? Is he still there? I don't know.
Dead to me.
Yeah, I mean, LaVisca is one of the world's greatest disappointments. I mean, not to me, because I kind of expected it, but to those who backed him. Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed's another one. Jaden Reed could be the 2 in Green Bay. He's only got to beat out Romeo Doubs to be the 2. And with Watson and his injury struggles, he could end up as the lead target man on that team this year. That wouldn't shock me. Don't forget, he's got the draft capital, like Mims, 2nd-round player. So draft capital goes well. Jalen Hyatt. I mean, that wide receiver room in New York is a complete, that's a complete free-for-all. Because you've got Sterling Shepard, Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodges, Wan'Dale Robinson. All of those guys were outside of the top 70 wide receivers in ADP. Because no one knows. No one knows. They're not all going to be bad. The Giants aren't going to have a wide receiver not finish in the top 70 of wide receivers. Like, they're going to have someone that finishes in the top 40. You've just got to gamble on who that guy's going to be. And it's likely to be Jalen Hyatt. That's the guy I'm shooting for. Wan'Dale Robinson's fine in the PPR league. He'll score you maybe 10 points in the slot, but he's not going to win your weeks. Hodges is the same plodder. It's going to do okay. He'll have a couple of decent 14-point weeks, but again, he's not going to get you that 20-point week. Slayton, he's the sort of guy that will get you a 20-point week and then do absolutely nothing for the rest of the season. So I'd go with Hyatt. Like, Hyatt can easily win his way out of the roster hell that's there. I like his seat. Justin Ross is another one. Outside of Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, who's always crocked, it's a free-for-all in Kansas City. Why can't it be Justin Ross? Justin Ross has shown a lot. He's shown a lot in preseason that he actually is good at football. How he fell the 7th round, I don't know. He's another sleeper. Like, these are the guys you want to have on your roster. And do you know what? If they don't pan out, it costs you nothing. It doesn't matter. You hook them off, you go and find the next new thing, and you go after them. But these are the guys right now. Like, how gutted will you be? You listen to this podcast, you don't action the item. Jalen Hyatt in his first week goes for 8 for 162 and 2. Guess what? Guess what? On the waiver wire next week, he's going to be waiver wire ad number 1 or 2, and he's going to cost you X amount of fab. Or if you're in a league where you don't do fab, you're not getting him.
Yep.
Don't miss out. These players are all available right now. You could literally go into your league. You can hit add. You can put them straight on your bench. And you know what? If they stink, that's fine. You can cut them next week. You can hold them a week. You can see what you want to do. But the one thing you're not going to do is miss out on these players because you'll have them. And if any of them go off, they're yours and they didn't cost you a thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas the following week, if any of these players go off, if Marvin Mims goes off, he's got the opportunity to do it. If Jalen Hyatt goes off, he's got the opportunity to do it. If Jerome Ford goes off, he will have the opportunity to do it. If Sean Tucker, I don't think he goes off week 1, if I'm honest. I think they're going to stink badly against the Vikings. But if he did go off, you'll have these players on your roster. They're there. And when it goes to waiver wire, people are going to go, oh, who has, like, Jalen Hyatt. I'm going to add Jalen Hyatt. I've heard on this podcast, I've got to add Jalen Hyatt this week. Oh, wait, he's already owned? Like, that's the best feeling in the world. When that happens, that is the best feeling. I'll never forget. I think you were in this league. It was the Epsom League, where I started adding handcuffs. And this was when Kareem Hunt got cut for the misdemeanor in Kansas City. And everyone was after Williams. And he was already on my roster because I'd already added a load of handcuffs before the playoffs. He ended up becoming a league winner, won the league that year because of the fact I had Williams on my roster. Didn't need to go to waivers. He was already on my roster because I picked up a load of handcuffs in week 13. And then that happened. And it's an unfortunate situation to benefit from. I'm not victory lapping it in the sense of I anticipated that Kareem Hunt was going to be an absolute D-head. But it happened. The player was available. I had him on my roster. It never went to waivers. And that is, you know, those are the situations that you kind of have to switch. And most of the time it's through injury. Most of the time it's through injury. And you've got to pick up on them and pivot quickly. And if you have those players on your roster, and that's why if you don't roster a QB and you don't roster a tight end, if you've got the elite. Now, if you don't have the elite players, I understand it. But if you do have the elite players at those positions, then you need to have as many bench spots as possible to take your shots.
Exactly. It's perfect. This is how we win ships. We win ships early before the season's even started because the docks look good when they're nice and clean and the ships are on the way. Murph, for those who haven't listened...
as well. You've got the backup ships.
Backup ships. We're sort of building an armada here without even really trying, which I'm a big, big fan of. If you are an audio OG, you will know that way, way, way back in the day, we did a segment called Murf on the Streets, is where Murf brought a fire amount of stats, which were just unbelievable to the podcast every week. And guess what? Because it's week 1 of the new season, Murf's got some stats. So let's hit the streets, my man. What have you got for us this week?
Well, it's week 1. So, right, week 1, it's all about setting the trend. And you want to win week 1, not in fantasy. You want to win week 1 in fantasy, but you want to win week 1 your team in real life. So the 57 Super Bowl winners have kicked off on kickoff weekend with a record of 46, 10, and 1. 46 wins, 10 defeats, 1 tie. So 46 of the 57 Super Bowl winners have won their opening weekend. That's a huge, huge number of it. And then as well, the 2004 regular season was when they moved to having the defending champions kick off the season on Thursday Night Football. So since that's happened, that was the Patriots. It's 18 of 19 times. There was one game that didn't happen. But in the 18 of the 19 instances since 2004, where the Super Bowl champions have kicked off on Thursday Night Football, they are 14-4. And since 2002, and that's when the Texans joined and made it 32 teams, teams that are victorious in their season openers are more than twice as likely to reach the playoffs than those that lose their opening game. So of the 334 teams that won their opening game, 176 of them went on to make the playoffs, and 117 of those, which is over a third, won their division title. Of the 332 teams that lost their season opener, 82 went on to win the title, to make the playoffs, and 51 titles. There's a reason there's a discrepancy. I'm just reading it here. The reason for the discrepancy was the inclusion of the 2017 Week 2 victories by Miami and Tampa, which won the season opener for each team. Their Week 1 meeting was postponed due to the hurricane. So you remember the hurricane that came over?
Yeah.
So the reason they got 2 more winners of teams that won that lost is that game was postponed Week 1. They played in Week 2.
Gotcha.
And so that's why they've added that on there. Last season's 14 playoff teams went 10-4.
Interesting.
So it's important to win your opening game.
Right, Denver. You've got to beat the Raiders.
Yeah. Basically, don't beat the Raiders. Season's over. You might as well just go home.
Okay,
Done.
fine. Well, that means this weekend is one and done. And if it's not, if we're not... Oh, the Chiefs, if they lose tonight, poor, are they going to repeat?
It's all over. So actually, to be fair, they're one of the teams.
Of course they are.
A couple of seasons ago, weren't they? They started really badly. Didn't they lose like 3 of their first 5 games? Or 3 of their first 6? And then they went on to make the Super Bowl. Did they win the Super Bowl that year? I don't remember. Or was that the year Tampa beat them? I can't remember. Anyway, I've digressed. But there's some interesting stats there about Week 1, why Week 1 is so important. It's unlike any other sport. Like the Premier League, you lose your opening game, it doesn't matter really. Same goes for, baseball, it really doesn't matter because there's 161 games that follow. Like you lose your opening game, and it really doesn't
You just play tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. You just play. You'll play a doubleheader tomorrow. You'll end up 2-1 after 2 days, and then you'll play until like Christmas or whatever. No, they play till November, don't they? I don't know. It's just silly. There's a saying with baseball that you win. Was it 54? Yeah. So you'll win 54 games, you'll lose 54 games, and it's what you do with the remaining 54 games that determines whether you make the playoffs or not.
So you might as well have a short season.
You might as well just have a 54-game season. Hey, I fixed baseball. Look at that.
There you go.
In one podcast, I have fixed baseball. Take 108 games away, have a 54-game season.
And you could have 2 seasons in a year.
You could have 2 seasons in a year. That's an ultimate. You could have 2 World Series in a year.
And then you could have the World Series.
Baseball so much money because
there you go.
We've all seen baseball in August when there's no one there, or September. There's no one there. No, there's literally one man and his dog and some kids, and they probably let them all in for free. Like it's embarrassing, like low, unless you're like the Yankees, but. If you're like a pretty crap team, like you don't have anyone go and watch you. You're playing. It's like playing in the COVID era. There's like no one there. Like for some teams, COVID didn't even impact them because they played against us. They played with the same amount of people in the crowd. Like fixed baseball, 54-game season with the playoffs. Jobs are good. And
then you could have the World Series where the winner of each plays in a huge grand finale.
Oh my god! Yeah, there you go. You can have the Mega World Series. The Mega World Series. Look, we fixed baseball.
It took 57 minutes, Rush Nation, but at the end of a fantasy football podcast, we've fixed baseball.
We fixed baseball.
You come for the knowledge and we fix other sports. That's just what we do.
That's what we do. Next week, we will tackle rugby league.
Is that, which one's that? Is that the one we won?
Rugby. That's the touch rugby.
I've never really had a problem with that.
It's Northern rugby.
Well, I mean, that is.
But it is Northern rugby. No one in the South plays it. Literally, no one in the South plays. There isn't a professional team that's south of
the Wall.
Well, no, I mean like it's St. Helens and Leeds and.
Yeah. Okay. Factually, it's a Northern rugby.
They used to have the Quins or London or whoever it was, and then they're not in it anymore. Most Southern rugby
Rush Nation, we don't apologise for this tangent. It is at the hour point, and it's Murf and Stocks talking nonsense. So if you want to leave now, thanks for coming. Don't forget to follow the podcast at 5 Yard Rush on Twitter. But if you want to stay for the chat, we are here for the most southerly rugby union league. I don't even remember.
Rugby league. The most
Rugby
southern
league.
is Warrington.
And that's a billion miles away.
It's by Liverpool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It took me 7 hours to get up there the other week. So that can't be true.
It is true. I'm looking at a map of it. These are the teams, right?
Northern.
Hang on.
What a northern sport.
I mean, except for the Catalan Dragons, because they're in Spain.
Who do they play?
They play the Super League. They play in the British Super League.
All right, this is broken. All right, we need to fix it. Next week we'll come up with
something. So we have
to...
one southern team who aren't in the south of England. They're in Spain. And they're in the most northern part of Spain, to be fair. So it's still a northern sport because they're right on. They're like by Andorra.
I don't know how to process the information.
In fact, they're north of Andorra. It's bizarre. Are they technically in France? They might technically be in France. I don't know. It's really close to the border. I can't zoom in enough. But the rest of them are. So you got Catalans who were just completely out of it. Got Castleford, Huddersfield, Hull, Leeds, Lee, Salford, St Helens, Wakefield, Warrington, and Wigan.
Northern. What a northern sport. You were not wrong.
Warrington is the most southern of those teams, and it's in line with Liverpool. This is basically for our American listeners who have just completely switched off. This is like playing a sport where the most southern of them is Washington State. And
then you've got a random team in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, you got random. Yeah, you've got the British Airways, the British Airways Lions. And there now, just to chime in, or the Catalonian Cats, yes. Catalonian Bobcats are down there.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
So it's not Catalonia. It's I've got the wrong continent now. I'm thinking Patagonia, the Patagonia Panthers. So yeah, the Patagonia Panthers. That's what I meant. The Patagonia Panthers.
That's a strong fantasy football name, that.
Yeah, I think so. I might change one of my league teams to them.
Me too.
Do you know what? I'm going to change one of the listener league teams that I have. I'm going to change. I have picked one at random, and I'll change to the Patagonia Panthers. And then if you've listened to the pod, I want you to use a GIF of Jeremy Clarkson. Any GIF you like of Jeremy Clarkson, because you got in trouble with Patagonia. You remember that Top Gear episode?
Yes.
And then they got kicked out because he had the Falklands number plate. And then that way I know that you've listened to the pod. This is a test. It's a test for that league.
There is a listener league.
Yeah, it's going to be a listener league. I'm going to do it tonight. And then tomorrow I'm going to see who puts Jeremy Clarkson gifts. And it will confuse the heck out of the people in the league who haven't listened to the pod. And they'll be brilliant. They'll be like, what is going on?
There you go.
I like calling carnage. What can I say?
Well, that's the that'll do it. I think that will.
I think that will do it. I think the fact we got to Jeremy Clarkson gifts. It's week one. Celebrate. It's week one. Take some advice from this show. Next week we're going to have a guest, and looking forward to it. Just confirming that up. It's going to be a cool chat because it's not a famous guest if it's the one I'm hoping to get, but it's actually a commissioner. And we're going to talk about making your leagues fun. So I think it's going to be a good one because you're going to have three very experienced fantasy football commissioners. We're going to talk about our favorite things about being a commissioner. We're going to talk about something. And then we'll do reviews of the action and some sleepers and some actionable points. We'll bring all of that in, but we are going to have some fun next week with some.
But it will be Thursday, so all of our review stuff will just be cursory, really, at that point.
But that's why we're going to cover it on the Waiver Wire pod and the Matchups pod, so that we can have some fun prepping you for week 2, bringing you ahead of the action, and just having a wild ride for the season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
There you go, Rush Nation. That is the end of week 1's preview, I suppose. If you are a northerner and you do enjoy the rugby you play up there, you are welcome. We've fixed it. Otherwise, head over to Patreon/5 Yard Rush if you'd like to support the podcast. Various tiers over there starting from £1.
just on that, dropped a Patreon cast this week. So I talked a little bit on here about bench management. I talked a little bit about the quarterbacks and the tight ends. I go into a 30-minute special on that, including some players that you should pick up, more than I did on here. So that's a great reason to subscribe. I'm going to be doing some strategic Patreon casts every week. So I'm going to do deep dives on trends of players trending down, players trending up based on their utilization and usage. And then on top of that, going to be doing some more strategy based. So in terms of how to manage your bench through the season so that you've got the best optimization to win. If that's not worth £1 a month, I don't know what is.
There you go.
I'm just saying, £1 a month, it's nothing. You can't even buy a Freddo these days because of the cost of living crisis for £1.
Support us, not Cadbury.
That's it. Cadbury's got enough money.
That's another T-shirt. We got Devo Samuel, Taste the Rainbow, and support us, not Cadbury's.
Oh my god, we're gonna have a whole range by the end of the season. I cannot.
And
wait.
not only that, somehow they're all confectionery based, and some of the biggest companies in the world are going to sue the life out of us. But hey, we're only here once. We've got to make the best of this Blue Marble experience. Listen, Rush Nation, at 5 Yard Rush on Twitter/X, at Murf_NFL on Twitter/SX. You can follow him over there. You can follow the pod.
We should also mention before we go, we are sponsored by Manscaped.
We definitely should mention before we go, we're sponsored by Manscaped. We somehow managed to absolutely get out of that this week. 1 hour 6 in, they're probably not going to be pleased with us.
I took the banner off because of the show I did earlier. Had to take the banner off so you could see me because I was in the small screen, the bottom left, which is the matchup show. So yes, definitely check out Manscaped. Use the code 5YardRush to get 20% off. Look how Box Fresh Stocks is. Look how horrific I am because I haven't used a lawnmower or the beard trimmer. So if you want to look horrendous like me, don't buy anything. If you want to look box fresh like Stocks and get the ladies and wear your tank tops, then check out Manscaped because you've got look at the muscles, exactly that. So you've got to don't be a Murf, be a Stocks. Buy from manscaped.com or co.uk. Use the code 5YardRush. You get 20% off everything. And I have to say, I have bought in the past and still have some of the lotions and potions, and especially the ball deodorant is superb. It's absolutely brilliant. So I still use that. I still buy it. It's a really, really good product. You can get 20% off that. Take my word for it. You will thank me later, especially if you do any form of exercise or cycling. You will really thank me, and more importantly, your other halves will thank me as well. Not you,
and it's free. It's free international shipping as well, Rush Nation. So there you go.
International shipping. Get involved.
What more? What more can you want on the hottest day of the year? That is going to do it, Rush Nation, for today's show. Enjoy Thursday night football. Enjoy your first weekend of football. Fantasy football is back. Let's celebrate those sleeper numbers rolling in. Get those dubs. Rush Nation, until next week, don't forget, keep rushing.